All right, welcome back to our mini MBA series. Today, we're going to tackle a framework that might just completely flip how you think about competition. It's called Blue Ocean Strategy, and trust me, it's all about finding a totally new way to win.
So if you're an entrepreneur or you're studying business right now, I bet this question feels familiar. You look at a market, you see all the competitors, and your brain immediately goes to, okay, how can I be better, faster, cheaper? It's this constant fight. But what if you didn't have to fight at all? So here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we're going to wade into the brutal reality of that competition, what we call the sea of red. Then we'll discover the alternative, the blue ocean. We'll see how it works with the amazing story of Cirque du Soleil, check out a few other examples, and then we'll talk about how you can start charting your own course.
Okay, let's start with what most businesses know all too well, the sea of red. This is that world of just brutal head-to-head competition.
And that metaphor, it's pretty vivid for a reason. See, in a red ocean, the market boundaries are already set, and everyone accepts them. The rules of the game are known. So companies just try to outperform each other to grab a slightly bigger piece of the pie. But as that space gets more and more crowded, profits shrink, growth stalls, and all that fighting, well, it turns the water bloody.
You know, the perfect example of this? The airline industry. I mean, think about it. Everyone's fighting over the exact same things. Price, who has the best routes, maybe an extra inch of legroom. For one airline to get a new customer, another one usually has to lose them. It's a total zero-sum game, and it just leads to these paper-thin margins and, honestly, constant warfare.
But what if there was another way? I mean, what if you could just escape that red ocean completely? Well, that brings us to the core idea here, discovering the blue ocean.
So this is the big idea. Instead of just fighting your rivals, you create this huge leap in value, not just for your company, but for your customers too. And in doing that, you open up brand new, totally uncontested market space. The goal isn't just to be a little better than the competition. No. The goal is to be so different that the competition just becomes irrelevant.
Yeah, this table really nails the difference in mindset, doesn't it? Red ocean thinking accepts the market as it is and just tries to win inside those rules. Blue ocean thinking? It's all about breaking those rules. You stop fighting over the same old customers and you start creating brand new demand.
Okay, so you're probably asking, how do you actually do this? Well, the key tool is something called the 4 Actions Framework, or the ERRC grid. It's really just 4 simple but super powerful questions that force you to challenge how your industry thinks. You ask, what factors can we just eliminate completely? Which ones can we reduce way below the industry standard? Then, which factors should we raise far above it? And the really exciting one, what new things can we create that the industry has never, ever offered before?
Now, to see how this framework plays out in the real world, let's look at maybe the ultimate case study, Cirque du Soleil. I mean, their story is just a masterclass in creating the blue ocean.
You have to remember what the circus industry was like before Cirque du Soleil came along. It was basically a dying business, right? People saw it as kind of cheap entertainment for kids, and it was totally dominated by these giants like Ringling Brothers. And what did they all compete on? Having the most famous clown or the coolest animal acts. But audiences were getting smaller, costs were going up, and people were starting to get really concerned about the animals. It was a classic, bloody red ocean.
So here's the genius of what they did. Cirque used that ERRC grid to perfection. First, what did they eliminate? The most expensive and controversial parts, the star performers and the animal acts. Gone. They also got rid of the messy, chaotic 3-ring setup. Next, what did they reduce? They toned down the silly fun and humor because they were going after a more adult, sophisticated audience. Then, what did they raise? They raised the bar big time. They created this unique, almost theatrical venue with stunning artistic music and dance. It felt more like a Broadway show than a circus. And finally, what did they create? Things the circus had never even thought of. A coherent theme, a refined, elegant environment, and multiple, different productions that people would actually want to see over and over again.
And the result of all this? Wow, they created a whole new market. Suddenly you had adults and corporate clients willing to pay premium, Broadway-level prices to go to the circus. They weren't competing with Ringling Brothers anymore, they just made them completely irrelevant. And in the process, they generated over $1 billion in revenue. It's just a perfect illustration of the power of creating a new space instead of just competing in an old one.
But here's the thing. Cirque du Soleil wasn't just a fluke. This pattern of creating a new market has been proven over and over again in totally different industries.
So, take yellowtail wine, for example. The wine industry used to be this red ocean of snobbery and confusing jargon, right? Yellowtail just eliminated all that complexity and made a simple, fun, accessible wine for everybody. And boom, it became the #1 imported wine in the US. Or look at Swiggy Instamart in India. They didn't try to compete on delivering your entire weekly grocery shop in 24 hours. Instead, they eliminated the huge selection and created a brand new market for 10-minute delivery of just the essentials for those impulse buys.
And come on, who could forget the Nintendo Wii? Back in the mid-2000s, video games were this insane red ocean arms race between Sony and Microsoft. It was all about who had the best graphics and most processing power for the hardcore gamer. Nintendo? They just sidestepped that whole fight. They reduced the graphical power but raised the fun, intuitive motion controls. And in doing so, they created a massive new market of families and casual gamers who had never played before. The result? They sold over 100 million units, leaving their competitors in the dust.
Okay, so the most important part of all this is how it applies to you. How can you, whether you're a student or an entrepreneur, actually use this framework to chart your own course and find that blue ocean?
Now, I do need to add a quick note of caution here. This strategy works best in consumer and service industries, places where you have a lot of control over the customer experience. If you're in a super heavily regulated field, like, say, pharmaceuticals or banking, it's a lot harder to just eliminate or create things because there are so many rigid rules and legal hoops to jump through.
But for most of us, the opportunity here is just massive. So I'll leave you with this one question to think about. Look at your industry or your project or that business idea you've been kicking around. Ask yourself, what is the one sacred rule that everybody just follows without question? And then ask, what would happen if you were the one to break it? What if you could create an entire ocean of new demand all for yourself?